going to be involving Jurong Port. The challenge from Jurong Port is very interesting. It's called Ship to Shore Mobile Application for Data Exchange and Effective Port Collaboration. It's going to be a very, very interesting challenge because it's about how we can extend the capability of the existing digital collaborative platform of Jurong Port, which is called LT Connect, right, to encourage data exchange sharing among terminal users to enhance ship to shore operation effectiveness. This is something that's going to be world leading, I believe, if you can get it done well, right? So our next speaker is Mr. Desmond Ong Lee Seong. He's the Vice President, Operations and Technology at Jurong Port. And Desmond joined Jurong Port back in 2014, and he currently heads both the projects and technology as well as the digital operations departments. So as VP, he leads the teams in the research, piloting, adoption of innovative and efficient solutions in Jurong Port's digitalization effort and its strategic move towards becoming the next generation multi-purpose port. Remember, this is a very important mission, the next generation multi-purpose port. So of course, Jurong Port is a world-class multi-purpose port operator serving as Singapore's premier gateway for general and bulk cargo. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to present to you Mr. Desmond Ong Lee Seong, Vice President, Operations and Technology at Jurong Port. Hi, Desmond. Please.
Hi, Billy. Thanks.
Take it away, sir.
You know what? I'm all decked out today in the uniform as well, isn't it?
Looking very handsome, sir. And I love your backdrop. Very nice.
You know what? It's the backdrop of our home port. And thank you all for attending. I think the tax officers are here today. So thank you all for attending. And I'm going to give a brief run through because it's going to be if I'm going to do it, it's going to take hours to explain lighter terminals. But without further ado, let me just jump straight in. So let me just share the screen, if I may. Okay. Just let me know once you guys have that screen up, and let me just a minute. Hold on, yeah. Can you guys see it actually? Wait, let me just see.
We can see in the preview mode, the PowerPoint preview mode, yeah.
Okay. Get this off a bit. Let me just grab this away. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Did you see this, the full slide?
Yeah, we see the full slide, right? Opening slide.
Perfect.
Right, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm not gonna just introduce this part already. I think Billy has done a great job on that. Hi, my name is Desmond, and let me just take you through the first slide that I like to show with everyone's good understanding. So if you can see this slide, it's always very nostalgic. So what it means is basically, you know, if you recall 1950s, 1960s, for those who are old enough to know this, you know, this is how lighter terminal used to run. And in fact, this is the boats that we used to carry. So you can imagine technologies and all that can come into play as we move on this. There's so much opportunities, and we have done that, you know, through the past couple of years, and there's a lot more that we can do as we move along. So before I go into the details of the background and all that, let me just share about Jurong Port itself. So Jurong Port, actually, it's a multi-purpose port, and we are a primary gateway for basically the general and bulk cargo since 1965, right? And 17 million of the general bulk cargo has been done through Jurong Port in 2019, of which we do a little bit of containers as well. And we have a bit of overseas port venture with China and Indonesia. And recently, if you have read the news, we have also recently acquired the JP Universal Terminal, and that's where we have started to venture into the tank farms and tank terminals. But I think without that, you know, all these things that we are doing in terms of business growth, one key part of our drive and journey is to make sure that, you know, we get into our waterfront transformation, and that's also focused a lot on the digitalization part, and as well as, you know, sharing this economy in the greater good of things. So where are we basically? Then that's what a lot of people may not know, right? Jurong Port isn't that far off in the western part, but it's somewhere in the southwestern region of it, in the Singapore island itself. And we have two main key lighter terminals that we're going to touch on later on in more details. That's where Penjuru Lighter Terminal and Marina South Wharf is to serve basically the anchorages in the Singapore waters. If you look at that, what does that mean, right? In the lighter terminals, things that we do. You can see here, right? It's really, really things that the vessel that requires all the supplies, from the point of mattresses to the point of the paints that they need on the vessel, to the, you know, even the lubricants that they need on the engines. So basically what we call as ship spares and ship supplies that they need. Unfortunately, not all vessels call in the port. Hence, as a result, when they come across the Singapore Straits, the Malacca Straits, sorry, they actually take supplies through the anchorages when they come here for bunker calls. But what key point to note here is also to note that it's actually a very high volume and high frequency business. To put into context, you actually notice that in the slide here, there are actually 82,000 boat calls in a year, and as well as 219,000 truck trips in a year as well. That translates to about 225 boats and 600 truck trips. That's really a lot in context to a terminal like this. So what that is actually poses a lot of problems that we face today, right? In terms of matching the trucks and the lighters. So I'm just going to show a little bit of the supply chain so that you understand why this is so important from a digital standpoint, how they go point to point, and where we are right now and how we can bring it into the future of it. So at the start of the picture itself, you can see that there's mother vessels. These are the vessels that actually the owners bring the vessels here. And typically when the vessels are actually calling into Singapore, apart from the typical loading and discharging operations at the terminal, they actually also come here for a bunker. And as a result of that, when they come to take bunker, which is the fuel that they need to travel, they actually take the ships and spares, which they actually get it from the local agents in Singapore. And you can notice that once you go down that path, then they'll go reach out to the ship suppliers to get these things. And these are somewhat like your supermarkets in layman term, and as well as your maybe your kind of like a spare shops that you get. And once you get that, you actually need to arrange the logistics transportation with the truck side and the lighter boat side. As you can see from the picture, these two are the main coordinating point between the landward and the seaward side, eventually reaching into the mother vessel to receive the goods itself. But to do that, the connecting point, the nexus between the land and the seaward is actually the lighter terminals. And to do that, there's a lot of transactions going on. You can see from the picture itself, the way that they do it today is very rudimentary. They actually use WhatsApp, they use WeChat, they use emails, even by phone calls, stuff like that, to basically coordinate jobs across the supply chain. So it's a very complex supply chain. I won't go into the details of how complex it is, but you can imagine and size up the problem when it comes to the amount of volumes that we do from the truck trips and the boat trips as well. So we kind of launched this LT Connect, right? So LT Connect was mentioned a little bit earlier by Billy as well. This whole LT Connect actually basically runs the terminal operating system that allows logistic planning to be efficient by matching the lighter boats and the trucks. So once you do that terminal operating system, we are able to basically get the trucks to come on time, and as well as the lighter boat, to match it such that there's no idle time, there's no congestions, and as well as getting it on real-time basis. So the ability to share this in a singular platform, and as well as connecting to the stakeholders, as you can see on the left of the slide itself, sharing the various stakeholders. We have about 300 suppliers, 2,000 over drivers in a community, 200 boat captains, and these boat captains, I'll share a little bit more about the demographics itself, and as well as the boat operators. So all these stakeholders needs to coordinate closely from the agent as well to be able to basically efficiently supply the cargoes that they need to bring it to the vessel. So from a schematic standpoint, so that you understand how that flows, basically earlier on I mentioned about the matching principle of it. Prior to that, everybody just comes to the terminal hoping to meet their lighter boat on time. Sometimes they don't meet on time just because there's a delay and they go through by phone, but because of the fact that it's through phone, sometimes miscommunication is like a broken telephone itself, you don't get the information right on time. And hence with the lighter terminal, LT Connect itself actually allows us to match the boat and truck more efficiently. And that's where we are right now. But of course, if you look at this problem statement, it will go beyond just where we are today with LT Connect. So that brings us to the next point where we are right now with the adoption itself on the LT Connect. You realize that, of course, from a system standpoint, it goes beyond just transactional in nature when it comes to the port. It goes into coordination, planning, and hence there are a lot more data points that we kind of built over the last couple of years in systems. And because of that, there are a lot more users involved. The second part of which is, of course, these kind of jobs are on the go. As I mentioned, it's all about logistics. So you have people driving, truck drivers, you have lighter boats traveling, coming into the terminal as well. These guys work on the go. And one of the key part of it is to expect, they do expect some kind of mobile friendly kind of devices to allow them to do it, of course, on the go itself without any difficulty. The environment obviously is one of the biggest challenges we face. It is not, in a warehouse or in a supermarket, you can just do the delivery itself, or for that matter, when you go to NTUC buy your goods. This is actually on right in the open sea. You have bad weather sometimes, and as a result of that, some of these challenges using digital platforms will will be something that we need to consider as well. Last but not least, and I think this is something that has always been a problem in the shipping and maritime industry itself. It's really an industry where there's diverse nationality itself, right? We're talking about like, drivers from the Indian nationality, from a Malay nationality, Chinese nationality, and even, all sorts of races that you find. And as well as, more importantly, you also have different literacy level where, you need to coordinate them into one singular platform. And as a result, it needs to be easy to use, and as well as ability to do it in a much more faster way as the operations is on the go at all times. So looking at that kind of issues, the next point I'm going to bring across is actually the problem statement that we have here. And that question is how we actually extend the capability of the existing digital collaborative platform, LT Connect itself, to basically exchange the data among users, to create more efficiency and effectiveness of the data. Today, we have done it on the web application. What's next for us is really to get into the level of mobile application. While it's simple from a technology standpoint, but from a change management and the UI UX will be a very key component to where we are in the problem statements today. So it is, if I may broadly put it into three main buckets itself. One of the key ones is, of course, on the real-time communication platform and as well as a notification system with LT Connect. Where we are right now, it's, of course, we have such features, how we're going to make it more seamless. And that's where this is the thing, one of the problem statements that we have here in one of the category. The other category is, of course, on the digital DSA view. I'll explain a little bit more in the later slide, but basically how we actually digitize this process that currently, while it's on a web application, but on the ground itself, it is still using manual paper processes. Last but not least, of course, the ability to preemptive plan and optimize basically the management of loading and resources that we have here, right? So let me just share a little bit about how it is done today in the context of technology that they use, or even not so high-tech technologies that we talk about. So they kind of go onto WhatsApp, as I mentioned just now, email and all that, to do their coordination work. Whether it's printed out emails and they have to start to inform their drivers. Similarly, on the boat operator side, they do over phone calls. This is how they want to do it. And that's where the first statement of having to find a way to connect this people, stakeholders in this singular platform beyond just a singular web-based application to outreach to these people. It's actually very critical here. So the way that we want to do so is to be able to provide this system notifications organized by loadings, and as well as the ability to have a response and acknowledgement kind of feature that allows them to be more responsive in the jobs that they're doing right now. And also, last but not least, no need to individually send information, right? But rather a consolidated one in a single data platform itself. The other part that I was actually raising on just earlier on a little bit is on the manual portion of things. Of course, while we have a system that allows them to do declaration, allows them to bring the cargo into the port, but once they enter the port itself, that's where paper documentation still needs to go through today, solely because there are certain links that needs to be accounted for, whether is it the number of lifts, whether is it the number of tonnages that they carry. These are things that are recorded here before they actually be transacted back into the system. So there's a bunch of manual transaction that's taken place right now, and you can see it's, while we are trying to be more technology savvy, where we are right now, we still do have a lot of papers, and that's where the opportunities are actually that we can actually gain from. So that's another potential that we are also focusing on in terms of hoping the tech solvers can actually help us with. All right, and of course using barcode scanning and all that stuff potentially in the future. So if you look at what the three buckets are, the summary of which is, of course, having the ability to have operations going on live with technology using mobile application prototype. What we have right now, obviously, as I mentioned, on the web application LT Connect platform, it's important that it's actually integrated seamlessly. Not only that, the other things that needs to be considered as well are the effective communication and the ability to have a future-ready framework. I'm going to talk about this because this is something that beyond just where we are talking right now between the land and seaward side, connecting to the terminal, it goes actually beyond that for the full supply chain. And that's where Juronport, being the nexus of the terminal, the land and seaward side of things, we are able to expand this digital front, allowing tech solvers to look into beyond just this opportunity of solving this problem statement that we have here. Of course, we are also looking at collaboration with the users on all this technology on the mobile application, so that the UI UX are very important that we mentioned in one of the criteria here as well. So I guess everybody is aware of this. I'm just going to quickly reiterate the point. We're here. We hope to find, the solution from the tech solvers, and hopefully, to gain access, the kind of pool that we have here in IMDA. And I really appreciate IMDA's effort in putting this whole OIP up today. Hopefully, we gain some of this expertise related to our project and be able to do these test resources. The evaluation criteria, it's in a document as well. I just want to briefly mention the solution fit is one of the key components of our evaluation. And then, of course, the ability to the readiness of which is also very important to us. Last but not least, on the two bases of whether or not there's advantage and potential in the future, and also in terms of rolling out on a pilot trial, and the company's background and profile on a technical basis. These are things that we will evaluate on. And yeah, so that's the timeline that we have. And I think that's my last slide. Yes. And I'm open to the floor for questions, actually.
Okay, thank you, Desmond. A very, very interesting presentation. And wow, the
No
challenge
problem.
is very interesting and very, very dynamic as well, I must say. Okay, before I go to the questions for the floor, I do have a very silly question. So basically, I understand that you have just developed LT Connect, right?
Yeah.
So my question is very silly, but why do you not consider just working with your current vendor who developed LT Connect to develop the next phase? Why turn to OIP? Yeah.
Great. I think that's a very good question. I'll put it very bluntly. We are a port ultimately, and the fact that our vendors are limited pool, and we have these vendors with us for the longest time, having the ability to build for us our web application, their strengths are in that level. So we realize that we are actually transiting towards actually a lot of front-end user capabilities that we need to have in the future. Hence, as a result, we realize that we need to expand our horizon in looking at that. And by chance, really by chance, and by a lot of close relationship with IMDA, we managed to find out that there's opportunities for us to outreach more of these tech solvers that we can find actually, through IMDA. I hope that answers. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your vote of confidence for our community of 11,000 tech solvers. Very, very potent community, I must say. Okay, we're gonna move on to questions from the floor. So the first question is from Anonymous again. Do you foresee everyone who uses the port to be required to download the app?
Okay. Actually, the whole idea of this is to get everybody download the app. However, we have a web application as the backbone. Henceforth, if they don't embark on that, the challenge it's always been adoption, right? That's why the idea here is more on getting the adoption rate up, and mobile application, due to the nature of the job itself, would naturally be their choice of preference of application versus web application today. Yeah.
And I suppose this also applies to the people who are on the ships, the boats and all that.
Yeah, the boat captains.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because at the end of the day, the application has to be outreaching to the diverse age group as well. And we are not agnostic to whether it's a younger group or older group, but it's important that we actually outreach to even the older generation. And today, the boat captains are as old as 70 years old, and some of their command of tech, it's not as can I say that they could do it with a lot easier tech interfaces. Yeah.
Okay. So that means that the UI UX is a very important factor in this the success of this app.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
That's cool. Okay. The next two questions are sort of related now, because I think they're both interested in the fact that you already have the existing LT Connect. So these two questions are very similar. Saying you already have LT Connect, but are you willing to consider a whole new solution that may not involve LT Connect?
There's a challenge to that actually. So because LT Connect at its core intent and purposes, of course, this is an extension. So unless otherwise, of course, we are open to hearing that, but unless otherwise it's a radical change to what we want to do, that will be quite a big jump to the users as well, because the users' workflows have been established through that application itself, in the web application.
Okay, but I guess in addition to that, is Juronport willing to rebuild LT Connect with additional features as part of this challenge?
That is open for reviewing. I think that's because you know what, tech solvers are here, man. I would love to have to hear from them, right?
Yeah.
And but again, that one key point I want to bring up, yes, to the tech solvers, that a lot of these are knowledge based from the operational processes itself. So why it's important that even if you were to build that, it has to replicate back into what the operation currently actually experience today. So unless otherwise they do see that, we do see that benefit and extension to that to rebuild this whole thing, that will be something that we need to reconsider as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And okay, next question is about from Edmund again. Okay, our regular questioner today. What is the architecture of LT Connect? For example, the database, APIs, and how do you interface with it?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Yeah. What is the architecture of LT Connect? Referring to the database and APIs and so on, and how do you interface with LT Connect?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say in a broad level, but Ian's on the call as well. He's my tech guy, and maybe we can
hi, Ian.
a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, hi.
Yeah, welcome,
hi.
Ian. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. All right. Just to answer Edmund's question, all right. The backend we already have established already, right? So the backend we are using the OAuth, all right, with API manager, with Oracle database, Java, and backend stuff like that. And to API, it would definitely be JSON and yeah, on the API integration part.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And then I think more technical questions for you. They kind of knew you were coming in, so they had the questions ready for you. Okay,
right.
Is there any API available to connect existing LT Connect system?
Yes, there are existing APIs that we can reuse, right, for the Angular front end part. But of course, if let's say there are additional APIs that required to do this prototype, we can actually work together and provide those APIs.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Always great to have a tech guy on hand as well. Okay, next question. Oh, this is another tech question, very cheap. Okay, are you open to PWA web app that functions just like an app? And also, will the internet be available always, or might there be a loss of internet?
All right, that's a very good question because prior to that, we actually have a lot of brainstorm session internally to see what are the pros and cons between PWA and mobile apps, right? So at the end, we decide that it will not be on the web base, not PWA, but more on the mobile app, right? Because the connectivity at the port itself sometimes may not be that good. So that's why we want to also look into these offline features that's available on that can be leveraged on using mobile technologies.
Right. Okay. Billy, don't mind if I add on to that point.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I just jump in a little bit on that point because again, beyond the port, because at the end of the day, if you recall the way the supply chain works is that we actually send the lighter boats out into the anchorage. Actually, that's a bigger challenge that we face because once you get out of the sea itself, you get 3G, 4G network. Sometimes it's not as good. Henceforth, when it's on the go, beyond the terminal itself is within our control. We can actually do out a lot more APs, access point and all that stuff to put it inside. But what's really challenging that we face, it's on the go. And sometimes you never know, right? You go on even to MCE, because we have one that connects to MCE itself. You never know where you get connectivity as well sometimes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Desmond and Ian. Okay, just two more questions. And then I think this one is something quite similar, but let's clarify as well. Is the prototype expected to be integrated into the LT Connect as an LT Connect app?
Yes, it will be an extension to the existing LT Connect platform.
Thank you. And okay, final question for Ian and Desmond. Must the source code be submitted to your organization? The source code of the solution?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, we would like to own the part of the IP as well. Right, Desmond, you have anything to add on this point?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this is a very typical questions asked, and I think that's from a operation standpoint because Anchorage Lighter Terminal is Juronport is the only one that operates it, and primarily also because we want to make sure that when we know this source code, we can actually expand further together with the solver. I mean, that could be discussed even further, but definitely the source code, somehow or another, JP will want to own a part of it, or if not all of it. But of course, we can discuss further. But there's a lot of opportunities, as I mentioned just now, because where we are right now, the supply chain is only the start of it, and we're going to extend it right to the end, where the anchorage itself, how fast they actually reach there, how fast they start delivering from the warehouse to the point. These are the whole supply chain that basically with LT Connect can be extended in the future.
Okay, thank you, Desmond. I think we have time for just one more question for Juronport, and this is from Benjamin. So it says, so the solution must also be able to communicate in a D/DIL, delayed, disconnected, intermittently connected, low bandwidth communications challenge environment with resume on break feature. Okay, Ian, I definitely need your help on this.
Yes, definitely. The solution have to be so-called support whenever there's a disconnect in the network, right? So one important point is that probably to look at how the information is stored in the local app, right? Before there's a connection and then send back. So these are the kind of solution that we're looking at.
Okay, I think this is another lecture in the future session of Innovation Thursday. Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, myself, we answered 2 more questions. One from Benjamin. It says, does the data involve video and data?
Video definitely no at the moment. All right. Data definitely yes. Right, because if let's say the port user, right, the user on the ground keeping track of all this information, it's all about sending data over the Wi-Fi or the broadband to our servers.
So no video data. That's great.
Okay, as of now, there's no video data actually. But then if you look into the longer term, because we are going to do a lot of video analytics on terminal itself, and that's where we will bring in the next part where digital twin and all that stuff which we're building right now, and that could potentially be a client app based in the future down the line. But at this kind of challenge right now, we are quite focused on data at the start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ken, sounds like you have something in common with the Singapore Sports Hub. A lot of plans for future expansions of the app. Yeah. Okay. This question was, I think, something we covered just now, but they wanted to make it very clear, I suppose. So, who does the IP belong to? Desmond, I guess the answer will be it depends on the negotiation between the selected finalists and yourself, right?
Yeah, I think one thing definitely for sure is that JP will want to own part of it. So there will be definitely JP's portion. But as to the solver itself, how do you want to negotiate that component? That's where we can discuss further. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. And thank you very much to Desmond and Ian from Jurong Port. Thank you for filling all the tough questions. Thank you. And we look forward to a lot of exciting submissions for your challenge. So good luck there.
Thank you.
Thank you.